you've got 30 minutes. So right now, I'm starting. I was going to address a few different things for a few different classes. Number one, I had to go buy more T-squares and triangles this weekend. 70 bucks at Staples for the stuff I bought. I know sometimes if I yell at you when you're like using your T-square as a back scratcher or a sword or something, you probably don't realize that this stuff gets really expensive, and I have a whole lot of them that are broken. So all I ask you to do, really treat them carefully. The plexiglass on these is not very strong. You should never hold it by, this is called the head of the T-square, this is the blade, like a knife, but don't use it like a knife. Don't ever hold it just, you know, if you hold it like this, you see sometimes people kind of swinging it, and they put the wood strip in there to reinforce it a little bit. Some of ours are clear plastic. Most of those broke. So just really treat that stuff with care. The triangles, same type of thing. A lot of them are broke. We tape them up. They're getting harder and harder to find because most people don't use T-squares and triangles for doing their drafting anymore. They use the computer, okay? Which brings me to the next thing. When I'm buying this stuff up at Staples, I go, maybe I should just forget the paper drawing and just do it all on the computer. But then everything I read says people should get it down first on paper before they go on the computer. And I thought, well, maybe I should just make it more of a want for the people that want to do it versus a need. And the whole target today, I wanted to talk to you about wants versus needs, okay? I think of teaching a lot like marketing. And in marketing, two of the most common terms are wants and needs. There's certain things that you want to buy, and there's certain things you need to buy, okay? You know, obviously food is a want and a need. That's why it's the best thing to market. People want it, and they need it, okay? I usually give that example and kind of compare the two of them because I think teaching is a little bit like marketing, okay? If every teacher just went up and said, well, what can I help you with today? Kind of like when you go in and go into a store, the first thing they want to do is, can I help you with something today? What can I help you find? Whatever. I just think that marketing has a lot of similarities with teaching, okay? And I thought, well, maybe in the classroom I should make it a little bit more like there's certain things that I want you to learn, and there's certain things you need to learn. Like Channel 1 had some good stuff on it today, but not necessarily a need. It's a good topic of conversation. I think that you get a good global education by watching it. Even the little segment they did about minorities in the colleges and stuff like that, you know, that's good to think about because these people in colleges from other countries are also going to be competing for jobs with you, okay? So it brings up some really good topics, especially in the area of vocational education and CTE, all right? Along those same lines, willing and able, okay? In marketing, you have to be willing to buy something, wanting to buy it, and you have to be able to buy it. You have to be able to afford to buy it, okay? Now, in teaching, same thing. I think that you have to be willing to want to learn it, and then you have to be able to. I have had some kids that they just weren't able to grasp this concept. I had some concepts in calculus when I was in college I just could not grasp. There was a thing called imaginary numbers, numbers that did not exist. But they said you have to learn about these imaginary numbers like a fraction with 0 in the denominator. It can't exist. But what if it could? And I never understood that concept until after September 11th when the airplanes crashed into the World Trade Center. They said they designed that building to withstand an airplane hitting it, and it did not hold up under those circumstances. And they said, why not? And they said because the planes that they made in 1972 or whatever year it was that the World Trade Centers were designed, they did not exist. Big enough planes, fast enough planes to carry and carrying that much fuel did not exist at that time. So they did not engineer the building to withstand a plane that big, a plane that fast, a plane carrying that much fuel. I mean, I have it recorded where the guy that's the architect of that building says, I designed it where a plane could hit it and it'll stand up. and then it shows him saying, these planes didn't exist then. I could not have predicted it, and that's what this comes from, imaginary numbers, predicting things in the future that might not exist now, but they could someday exist. That was a hard concept for me to understand. So, willing and able, another term in marketing that I think also applies to teaching. You have to be willing or wanting to learn it, and you have to be able to. Okay? That's kind of my comparison to teaching and selling. I used to have written on my board, what can I do for you today? What can I get for you? How may I help you? And I thought that should be, that term should be something we use more in teaching. See, doesn't it seem like whenever you go into a business, their approach is, how can I help you today? What can I help you find? What can I help you learn? Whatever. Okay? Sometimes it's tougher in the classroom because in a business you might have one person come to you at a time. Probably are not usually bombarded by 27 or 28 people at once going, can you help me please? So I'm just talking about some of the similarities between teaching and marketing. I also mentioned there, and I'm going to reiterate this, you guys have already heard this, but that Schweitzer Engineering Lab that we were just talking about, the company I got to fly in their jet back to Chicago and back. And it's interesting to think that that guy was a teacher, basically a professor at WSU, making fair money, and now he's one of the wealthiest guys in Washington State, if not the nation. That Ed Schweitzer, that owns Schweitzer Engineering Labs out of Pullman. It's interesting that he gave WSU the opportunity to buy into his product. He developed the first digital relay. He gave them the opportunity, hey, do you want part of this? And they said no. Millions of dollars it would cost to go into that, but yet they pay the football coach millions of dollars. Aren't they both risks? Why is it sports? They think that is a safe risk, where financing this guy's business is not a safe risk. The highest paid person in Washington State, government paid person in Washington State is the football coach at University of Washington, at UW. It's the highest paid government official, more than the governor, more than the Department of Education chairperson. I think that's crazy to think, even more than the president of the university. The football coach makes more at UW than what the president of the university does. And I think that sometimes you look at like what's going on with Leach up in Pullman, sometimes when you have a person who makes more money than the person they work for, they have a hard time listening to the, in other words, I don't know if that makes sense to you or not, but if the president of the university is making less money than the football coach, I think sometimes that football coach has a hard time taking orders from the president when he goes, I make more money than you do. And in a lot of businesses, I think that's the case. Well, why should I listen to you? I make more money than you do. A lot of these football players and pro players make more money than their coaches. Probably not more than the team owner, but more than the coaches. And I think that's probably why they have such a hard time sometimes taking orders from them. They go, I make more money than you. For some reason we associate it with the more money you make, the more important you are. So they think, well, I don't really have to listen to you, I make more money than you. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but it's something to think about in marketing. The end. I'm done with my preaching for today.